Welcome back, everybody, to Plan's 10-Minute Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Diver. This is your podcast for all things building services related. I am joined today with my co-host, Danny Reilly. Danny, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's actually a Friday, so it's a happy Friday. It's a happy day for all of us, I'm sure. Good to be here.
Exactly. Thank God it's Friday. And we are joined with the Senior Vice President of Onyx Equities, Kristen Pappas. Kristen, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
Kristen's an exciting guest for us because we haven't had many guests come into the commercial real estate business. And we thought, this would be a great opportunity to have a lot of interesting conversations. And we keep this short, so we'll just jump right into it. Kristen, is there any trends that you're noticing, especially within the past couple of years, how crazy everything's been? Kind of what are you noticing trends-wise in the commercial real estate industry?
I think high level. So the best example of what I see is we have a couple of buildings in Newark, office buildings that are connected by a concourse that has retail, mostly food and beverage. Up until recently, it was kind of scary. It was a ghost town. Over the past couple months, though, almost every day I see people coming back. So I finally had some of my building staff actually count through like our turnstiles, and we have a connection directly from Penn Station. So just to see how many people are coming in and out during the day. Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, we see anywhere between 3,500 and 4,000. Mondays is closer to 2,000, and Fridays is like 1,400.
Like minimal, yeah.
Yeah, I think the trend is when people are working from home, they're choosing to do it Fridays and Mondays because it's significantly less congested on those days. But Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, it's getting refreshingly crowded, and I think even just visually, it's definitely, there's a lot more foot traffic than there has been, 6 months to a year ago and beyond.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, side question, quick, Ryan, if you don't mind. So I like the notion of less folks on Fridays and Mondays. So it's almost like having like a 4-day weekend sometimes, the way you look at it. Have you heard about this 4-day work week? And if so, what are your thoughts?
I heard about the 4-day work week. I think that I work a 7-day work week, so I don't really know how that should be. But look, I think if people are productive and they can get their work done in a certain amount of time. I mean, as a manager for me, I manage quite a few people, and it's not like, okay, you're here from 8:30 to 6:30 or you're not getting your work done. I think our generation, which is, I like to think younger at this point, it's more about, your productivity and not necessarily the hours you spend in the office. So I'd have to see for myself, and I think it depends on the type of employee, but I'd be for it as long as it actually works.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that. Let's hope that your employees aren't watching this podcast because they're going to be like, please, 4-day work week makes sense.
Yeah, I got all my stuff done in 4 days.
Yeah,
I have an asterisk, like if your work gets done. So,
for
and it's
sure.
property management and construction, right? Because that's not a 4-day work week.
Mm-mm.
Right? The buildings are open. Even the leases specify when buildings are open, and then construction. I mean, we can't reduce it to a 4-day construction work week, right? Or we're beholden to permits and what the township tells us like we could do. So if I cut a whole work, let's just say I told all my construction personnel, hey, you can stay home on Fridays, we lose a whole day of productivity.
Right.
So I think it would be very hard to justify in property management and construction.
Right. So it's vertical to vertical, industry to industry. It depends on what you're doing, right? So that makes sense. Just curious. Carry on, Ryan.
No, I mean, that kind of bled into our next question, which was like, when we saw people working from home a lot, making their own schedules, or, definitely a blended mix of when you had to go into the office, with these offices kind of not being used by tenants and stuff. Did you see that now people are kind of wanting to use their investment more and saying, hey, you kind of have to come into the office? Are you seeing people like demand that more, or is that it's still kind of being left up to the companies?
I mean, I think it's a mix depending on still the type of tenant, but I think in the height of COVID, companies, especially larger companies, banks, places like that, were afraid to say you have to come back, right? Because what were the implications? And it's all about risk. At this point, now that things have quieted down and everybody's trying to figure out, what to do, I am seeing more and more companies take away the work from home policy and just say, you have to come in, whether they're phasing it in or just saying, like, one day woke up and said, everybody come back, which is what I did. I was like, all right, everybody get back to the office. I think more and more companies are loosening the work from home policy, not in the work from home favor. So maybe not loosening it is the correct question, correct way to put it, but everybody's there is definitely a push to come back to the office.
Yeah. Quick, I was reading an article, and I was mentioned this earlier, from Harvard Business Review. So to your point with the employees, what I'm seeing, like from a sales team, right? 85% of employees would be motivated to go back into the office to rebuild team bonds. 84% of employees would be motivated to go into the office if they could socialize with their coworkers. So I think from my standpoint, and I'm sure you would agree then, the employees, I hopefully miss the camaraderie, miss kind of seeing folks and getting motivated, having competition in a healthy way, and just collaborating better, right? Versus over a Zoom call like we're kind of doing now. So just any thoughts on that too?
I always just find it interesting, like how it's kind of been used as a way to sell your business as a place to work, whether like positively or negatively, whatever your opinion of it is. Like the ability to work from home could appeal to a lot of people, and that's what people sell that as, like, oh, like we can work, you can work from home if you work with us. So I always find that just really interesting now. But then there's also certain jobs like they physically cannot do it from home. And I think that's kind of like the industry that we're in, where we're in these people's lives, like either, all day or sometimes all night if it's residential. So there's just never going to be 100% like work from home.
Right.
I mean, I'd be interested in knowing what the long-term mental health effects are working from home and not socializing with people, because I know for sure when I first came back to the office after they had like that shutdown and I was around other people, I just felt instantly better. I mean, it was definitely refreshing to be around your peers and just other human beings other than, whoever you're living with. And, I just, when you emerge from being in your office all day, it just felt good to me. So I can't imagine that, there's not some sort of mental health effect of being around peers. And there is a product, like, I don't know, people are like, I'm equally as productive at home as I am at work. I just don't know how that could be. And like, Danny, you touched on sales, but no matter what you're in order to get an answer, let's say I needed to ask my partner or the head of asset management, for example, what my budget is on something. I could turn around and ask him now. It takes me 2 seconds rather than put in a call, Teams call him, just email him, everything just moves a lot faster.
Time, yeah.
100%.
Yep. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Like I can ignore an email for a couple of minutes. Like if you're just standing in front of me, it's hard for me to just be like, one moment.
That's true.
Yeah, and I'm very annoying, so I won't let you take them. I'm just like, tell me now, And I think the bigger a team is, the more that reigns true. And especially with construction and property management. I mean, you guys know, like if a tenant needs something, I can't be like, hang on, we'll get back to you in a day or two. I need to speak to my vendor. That's just not the way of this business. And I don't think you guys would be successful as vendors. And I wouldn't be successful as a landlord if we had like significant delays in our communication.
Right.
So,
yeah. Solid points.
It's definitely something interesting. I always like talking about, to just think about the future. Kind of moving away more off of that and back to the commercial property space. Kristen, is there any tips that you can give for somebody who's kind of just starting out in this industry that could make them a better property manager and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, something that I've been touching on a lot, and I think the perspectives are very different depending on who you're asking. But as a landlord, the most important thing, and I think for a property manager or a landlord company, the actual owner, is you have to be adaptable right now and flexible. So architects, a lot of them like to think that they've solved the answer, right? How do we get people back to work and what every tenant wants? And unfortunately, that's not the case. I think what every tenant wants is to be heard and for us to accommodate what they're looking for. And just to give an example, right now, there's a big push for common area space, co-working, what do you call it? Collaboration areas, right? And then in Newark, for example, we did this like vast food and beverage programming, and it's just super, super awesome. But there's still some tenants, and I'm working with one in particular who's confidential, who we did a space plan for them. And the architect made this beautiful layout, and it had all these collabo areas and this eateries, and they were using the space as a collaborative environment. And the tenant came back with feedback that said, no, we want you to put as many desks in there that you could possibly fit, like per code. And we were like, okay, and I don't think if we were willing to do that, we would have got the tenant, but we did. And you have to be willing to listen. And that goes for, I think, everything that we do. I mean, you guys see it when you're going in to meet with the tenant for the first time for their space. And even during COVID, the cleaning specifications that were right for one weren't right for the other, right? So if you want to be a successful property management, you just have to be flexible, and you have to be ready to adapt in a second to whatever the trend is, or whatever's fashionable that day.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, we're the same way. So overall theme is you got to be able to personalize and customize to every single client, because no two are the same. Totally agree. Yep, for sure.
That's what it is, right? What we do, it's customer service, right? And the customer, how long have you always heard the customer is always right? So even if they're wrong, you make them feel right, and then you make a suggestion that's better for them. But that's what it's all about. And I think no matter what's happening in the world, people are always going to need office space. And I think everything's a cycle. So things come back around. We're seeing it now. It was like nobody will ever return to the office. People are returning to the office, right?
Yep.
So it's just, how do we make it better? How do we make it more comfortable for people? And then in 10 years from now, it's going to look totally different again. So if you don't stay agile, then you just can't compete.
Yep. Great points.
Adapt or die.
That's correct, Ryan. Really straightforward there.
That's what I mean.
It's the truth, though, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a great note to leave it off, kind of always progressing forward, always really changing and staying ahead of the curve to, make people in changing times try and want to go with you versus everybody, especially if the selection is kind of becoming less and less. So, Kristen, we really thank you for coming on. Where can people follow you, or where can people find you?
Oh, I intentionally hide from the public, but
LinkedIn, right? You're on LinkedIn at least.
LinkedIn.
You know that.
On LinkedIn, we have our Onyx Equities website. We have the Junction website, which is our new website for Newark. So that's where our corporate offices are. I'm always there. We have some really cool stuff opening up from Chip City, Serafina, Farinella, Fresh & Co., Mock Bar, Brooklyn Dumplings. Just this very Jersey Mike's, a very cool food and beverage programming, open layout right across from Penn. So at any point, you could come hang out there.
Nice.
And then of course we have the LLS Big Climb. Can I plug?
Absolutely.
100%.
This is your time.
So April 22nd, Onyx partners up with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society to do New Jersey's Big Climb. It is a 26-stair vertical climb to raise money for cancer patients and their families, particularly for leukemia and lymphoma. But the work that they do is research fueled for lots of different diseases and cancers. And we'll be climbing again April 22nd. And I do this in memory of my mom, Betty Pappas, who passed in 2016 from blood cancer. So you can register for that. I think it's lls.com/big climb, but it's a lot of fun. Danny was there last year. Can't make it this year, I think, though, right?
Can't make it, unfortunately. But I will comment off that. It is a great thing you guys are doing for a very long time. You affect and change many lives. I can attest to that 26-stair climb. It's grueling. It's exhausting. But when you're walking up, I love how you have the memories and photos of loved ones that we unfortunately lost along the way that really keep you motivated and knowing it's for a bigger cause than yourself. So we really appreciate you doing that. It goes a long way.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely provide links to that for sure, because that's a great cause. Everybody, we thank you so much for watching. This has been Plan's 10-Minute Podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts, we'll be there. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Kristen.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.